I was on vacation for a couple weeks and there's nothing that matches the energy of sitting on the beach and reading a romance book. So I wanted to give you some romance book recs for this summer, but I wanted to do it in a bit of a fun way. So what better way than tier ranking every single romance I've ever read? This comes with the caveat that I am not going to rank any YA romances that I've read just because it feels weird to compare them to adult romances, especially in some of the categories that I'm going to go through. But another thing that you may want to keep on your radar for this summer is some new intimate clothing to get you through these sweaty months. Today's video is being sponsored by Parade, and they are a really awesome underwear brand that is soft, seamless, and super comfortable. You may remember that I talked about them back in March, and I have been in love with their products ever since. I really love that their products actually suit people's needs, and they come in these really beautiful colors and just these different cuts that I absolutely love. So last time I talked about their bralettes, and I ordered another one this time as well, and I think it's just so cute and it's also so comfortable. It's like super stretchy, and it's one of the perfect things to wear during the summer in these sweaty months because it's just really light and airy. Now, of course, we're talking about romance books today, so I thought I would also show you some of the balconettes and the corsets that I got. So this is the Luxe Longline Bralette. It's super cute in this pink, and I love how silky it is and the beautiful color because it's just so flattering. I also grabbed the Dusk Till Dawn corset, which is just so stunning. I love the lace and I love how flattering it looks on me. It's one of the perfect things to wear with like jeans on a night out. But I must say, out of the products that Parade has sent me, the ones that really stole the show were their seamless thongs. These are just such perfect pairs of underwear. They are stretchy, they are soft. It's like great for wearing under leggings. I go to the gym all the time. I wear my bike shorts all the time. So having seamless underwear like this is just so important to me. And I just love the cute colors that these come in. I feel like it's so important to have really good quality intimate clothing, especially during the summer. So if you would like to get some wonderful Parade products with a 50% discount, then head to the link down below in my description and use the code STORY50 to get a 50% discount. The sale is for a limited time only, and you'll definitely want to check it out early to grab the colors that you want. Thank you so much to Parade for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get into this tier ranking of romance books. So I have 6 tiers here, and they're fairly straightforward, but let me go through them. So at the top we have Protect Them at All Costs. These are my favorite couples, my favorite romances, the ones that need to have a happily ever after in whatever headcanon that I have going on. Below that we have Give Me All the Cringe, and these are the books that have a bit of cringe to them, but honestly I am here for that cringe. Next is Aren't We Supposed to Fall in Love? These are the books that are marketed as romance books, but I do feel like they are more of other genres, but they still have a bit of romance that I quite enjoyed. And then the last 3 are fairly straightforward. So I have Icky Stale Bread. These are just the romance books that were just bad in my opinion. They gave me the ick. They were really stale or boring, or I couldn't see the chemistry between the characters. And then we have the tier that is basically for all of the Sarah J Maas books that I used to read, and that is It's Just Because of the Fairy Dick. It's fairly self-explanatory, but it also applies to some of the other like romantasy books that are out there that I actually haven't been picking up all that much, but if I were, they would go in this category. And then the final tier is the 2000s and 2010s were toxic AF. I find that there are so many romances that I read years ago that came out in the 2000s or 2010s that were so enjoyable at the time for me, but looking back on them, they were toxic AF, and I can't believe that our standards were just so low back then. I feel like you can guess which books are gonna go in that category already, but let's just get into this. Let's start with the Actar series by Sarah J Maas. I know so many people love them and they're super popular, and they've sort of become the token book that you see people taking on like a flight or on vacation. Like I saw so many people reading Actar while I was on vacation, and it was just absurd. But I think it's the hype around the romance and the smut, which isn't even that great compared to some smut that I've read in other books. So overall, I feel like the appeal of these is just really for the fairy dick. So that's where they're gonna go. Okay, next we have the third book in the Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. The third one is Act Your Age, Eve Brown, which is so cute. The main characters are both neurodivergent in some ways, and it was just such a tender but cute and fun romance that I think I'm like, just give me all of the cringe, please. Take a Hint, Dani Brown, I feel like is probably my favorite of the trilogy, and honestly, it's gonna go and Protect Them at All Costs. I love the main characters in this book. I love the smut in this book. It's just so fun, it's so sexy, and the book has the fake dating trope, and in this case, it just made for a really great romance. Okay, and then Get a Life, Chloe Brown. This was honestly my least favorite out of the three, but I still think it's really great, so I'm gonna put it in Give Me All the Cringe. Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. I'm actually in the middle of reading this one right now, so I can't technically rank it based off the whole book, but right now I'm like, I love this so freaking much. It's really just like a character study, and I love both characters. They're just so quirky and weird, and I love it. There's also the aspect that the main girl character is also bipolar like me, so that was very validating, and overall it's just like really beautifully written, and I love Olivia Blake's writing. Okay, time for some Emily Henry rankings. So we have Beach Read, which is the first of her novels and the one that I probably loved the most. It was just so striking when I first read it. It had such a great build-up, really great tension, an excellent payoff by the end. Okay, we're just gonna put it in the top category for now. I really did love the romance, and it's definitely one of the most perfect summer romances to read. Okay, then we have Book Lovers. This one definitely goes to the top because I loved these characters. I love that it was like this small town romance, and obviously it has our two main characters who are in publishing and in the book industry. One is an editor and one is a book agent, and I just loved the vibes. All right, I'm gonna rank People We Meet on Vacation next, and I feel like this one should go under Give Me All the Cringe. It has a really great like friends to lovers situation, but it does get a little cringy in some ways. It's also got a bit of drama to it, which I like, and it also has the cheesy ending to it that I really loved. And now we get to Emily Henry's two most recent releases, which honestly, guys, did not do it for me. I'm torn between putting them on these two categories because honestly, I didn't really like the male love interests in these books, nor did I really find the main characters to be all that interesting. Okay, I'm gonna put them on Aren't We Supposed to Fall in Love for now because I feel like there are gonna be much worse books that I'm gonna put on the icky stale bread tier, and I don't want them to be on the same one. Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan, these characters need to be protected at all freaking costs because they're just so amazing. I loved the progression of the romance in this book. It is so tender and beautiful, and it's really a story of healing. It's about a divorced couple who are finding their way back to each other after sort of going through their own healing separately. And I just need everyone to read this book. All right, next I have Bride by Ali Hazelwood, and honestly, I loved this. It was so much fun, but it was super cringy, which I feel like a lot of Ali Hazelwood's books are. Part of me would like to say that the appeal of this book is really to do with the werewolf aspect, and that kind of gives me like, it's because of the fairy dick situation, but it's got so many other layers to it as well, and it's got really cute banter and fun characters and a little bit of a mystery, and overall great time. All right, we're on to the Bridgerton books, which I have read all of them because of the show that I love, but honestly, blanket statement for all of them, they're not as good as the show. They are just a different beast, and they come from a different time, and I feel like the adaptation is doing something so different and cool and fresh. So The Duke and I is definitely going in toxic AF because let's not forget the rape scene that basically happens in the book, but otherwise the fake dating, pretty fun. The Viscount Who Loved Me was probably one of the better ones, and I honestly really enjoyed it. So that one's going in Give Me All the Cringe. An Offer from a Gentleman, Benedict's book, third book in the series, the one that is yet to be adapted, but that I really hope is next season. And it's one of the romances that's a little bit more interesting because it's basically a Cinderella story. This one still is a bit problematic from what other people have told me. I just didn't clock some things when I first read it. But regardless, honestly, I really enjoyed it, and it's gonna go under Give Me All the Cringe. The next book in the series is Penelope's book, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. Although season 3 of the show bounced back really incredibly in the last 2 episodes of the season and adapted the book in a really beautiful way, I still think that the book itself is really icky stale bread. Colin was just not that interesting. I hated his insecurities in the book, and he was just so much more of an ass in the book, I feel like. After that, we have Eloise's story, which is To Sir Philip with Love, and honestly, I hated this one, and I think it goes in toxic AF. This one does have some weird elements to it, and a male love interest that's kind of got weird anger issues that I didn't really like, and honestly, Eloise could have done better. And then we have Francesca's story, When He Was Wicked. This one was more fun, but not that amazing, and it definitely gets weird, especially with the way that the male love interest acts. So it gave me the ick, honestly. It wasn't stale, but it was icky. It's in His Kiss was totally problematic. There was like definitely parts of it where the male love interest was trying to coerce the main character into marriage by like compromising her beforehand. And it's all very shady, even though it's like sort of portrayed as like, oh, he's just doing it because he loves her, but Like, why? On the Way to the Wedding, Gregory's Story, the final Bridgerton book. Honestly, this one was kind of cute. It did a lot better than most of the books and wasn't as icky. So I think I'm gonna put it in Aren't We Supposed to Fall in Love? It's time. We're gonna tier rank the Colleen Hoover. I think you can guess which tier basically all of these are gonna go on. But let's go through this. Okay, starting with a whimper, we are going with Confess. I honestly don't even remember what this one was about. I think it involved a love interest with a daughter and some secrets. It definitely wasn't one of the better or more intriguing or interesting Colleen Hoovers. So I guess I'll just put it under Icky Stale Bread because I feel like that's a neutral area. Okay, it ends with us. Obviously, this one is going in Toxic AF. It does try to talk about domestic abuse, but it does sort of romanticize the abuser for most of the book. And also another reason for putting this pretty low is that I didn't actually really like the other love interest that she ends up with. He was just kind of boring to me and just there. Maybe someday. This one was probably the first Colleen Hoover that I ever read. There was a lot of songwriting in it. That's what I remember. But I do remember there being a bit of a toxicness to it at some point in the book. So this is gonna go in Toxic AF. Okay, November 9. Although I like the concept of like characters meeting again on the day that they met every year and trying to reconnect in some ways and seeing each other grow in different ways, this book definitely had some toxic, weird consent issues in several parts of the book. And although it seemed fine when I read this ages ago, if I read it now, I know I would be icked out. So this is going in Toxic. Okay, Slammed, I think, is her first novel. I can't remember for sure, but I do think it's the one where she dates her teacher. I don't remember what this was about, but whatever my mind is sort of dredging up right now in the far corners of my brain, I am reminded of just overall icky feeling and sense that this was wrong. Okay, final Colleen Hoover, Ugly Love. I remember when I first read this, I was like, oh my God, this is so heartbreaking. But now that I think about it, I'm like, this was so weird and manipulative and honestly not as sexy as I thought it was back then. Okay, now that we're done taking out the trash, let's get on with it. Dating Dr. Dil by Nisha Sharma, oh my God, will go down in history as like the most cringiest book that I love so freaking much. I know a lot of people either love or hate this one, and it was really popular on Book Talk at one point, and a lot of people were weirded out by the fact that the male love interest has a name for his dick. But regardless, I loved the romance in this book. It was super cringy. It had a lot of banter to it. It's these two South Asian main leads, which I personally love. And honestly, it had some pretty sexy scenes and also just some really wholesome, beautiful scenes. I think overall it delivered in a very nice like rom-com and like Bollywood movie-esque way, and I love that. Funny You Should Ask by Eliza Sussman. I hated this book. This was the most icky, stale-bred piece of fiction that I've ever read. Whoever the hell on Book Talk who said that this book was good needs to be arrested. I just didn't care for these characters at all. They were so stale, they were so boring. I did not understand any of it, and there was literally zero chemistry between them as well. Her Night with the Duke by Diana Quincy, definitely god-tier romance. Such a fun Regency-esque romance that features a Palestinian main character living her life, doing her best. She is a widow, she is a travel log writer, she is self-supporting, and girl is getting her dick. When she's stranded at a inn one stormy night, she ends up sharing a room with this guy and they have a one-night stand. But it turns out that he is the guy who is betrothed to her stepdaughter. She has an adult stepdaughter who's basically like only a few years younger than her, and this is because her husband who died, who is the stepdaughter's father, was really, really old, and she was married very young. But the forbidden romance aspect of this book is just unmatched. Honey and Spice. This one was definitely a fun one and a cute one. I think it was more in the cringy space though. Okay, Honey Girl, this is a bit of a like millennial queer romance and involves a character who goes on vacation and ends up having like a one-night stand, I think, and then tries to find the girl that she slept with and is sort of going through like a crisis of her identity, and I just loved it. It was super cute. How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwon. Guys, I read this over vacation and it was so freaking fantastic. It's so sexy. It's so well written. The characters have such great chemistry, and I just loved the progression of the story. I was so impressed by the way that the author convinced me so thoroughly of these two falling in love. Like, I just was so skeptical of it at the beginning, but then by the end, I was like, oh my God, they are meant for each other. They love each other so much. Like, I saw it come together, and it was incredible. Also, shout out to our male love interest, Grant. He is so sweet. Not in the sense that he's a muffin, but in the sense that he is brave enough to lay his heart down on the line and let her smash it to pieces every time, and he still tries again, and I loved that. He was just so vulnerable with his love, and that was just so admirable to me. It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. If there's one thing you're going to do this summer, don't pick up this book. It was just the most basic bitch romance book that I've ever read. Rich girl goes to small town and falls in love with gruff, grumpy guy and learns to care about things other than shopping and, you know, material possessions. Anyone who recommends this without revealing how basic it is just doing a disservice to humanity. Kiss Quotient, Helen Huang, definitely goes in Protect Them at All Costs. I loved the characters in this book. I loved our main character. She is on the spectrum. She is a very smart, intelligent, successful career woman, and she's just trying to figure out how to fall in love and how to date and do all of that stuff, and she hires a male escort to help her. All right, we're finally onto the contemporary Ali Hazelwood's. So, Love Hypothesis, I think we all know this one goes in cringe category, but I loved it. I know people hate it for that reason, but I loved it for that reason. Now, Love on the Brain. This one was a little bit weird, and I think I'm gonna put it in Aren't We Supposed to Fall in Love, because I don't think I enjoyed it as much as her other books, and it did have other elements to it going on, and I feel like the romance wasn't my favorite part of the book. Now, Love Theoretically, on the other hand, gosh, I love this one. I feel like I want to put it in Protect Them at All Costs. I really like our main girl character. She was just such a strong, resilient character who is just like getting back up after being beaten down so many times by her family, by the people around her. And she basically spends the whole book trying to grow a backbone. And I honestly was here for it. I support this girl in all of her endeavors. She was doing the most. And this is not to mention the very sexy male love interest who was just so intense, but also so loving and tender and sweet with her. And I just couldn't. It hurt to read it at the time because, you know, why don't they exist in real life? Now I have to talk about Ali Hazelwood's newest book, Not in Love, which I read on vacation on the beach. Absolutely perfect for summer reading, guys, because it was just the most fantastic, smutty book you could be reading for the summer. It was basically mostly all sex, but it was the way that the sex was used in the book to further the story, the plot, the characters' relationship. They communicated through the sex, and it was just so well done. The characters in this book are like way more damaged than Ali Hazelwood's other characters in her other books. And so I just really enjoyed it. It was fun, it was cute, it was sexy, and it delivered. Meeting Millie. This is the best sapphic romance that I have read ever. I haven't read that many, but this was fantastic. And if you have any book recommendations similar to this, please leave them down below. These characters need to be protected at all costs, but they were just so wonderful, and I love the way that they fall in love. And I love the little sprinkling of some smutty scenes towards the end, which just really brought the book together in a wonderful way. All right, next we're in Havana by Chanel Clayton. I feel like this book has been marketed many times as a romance, but it's honestly just a historical fiction. But it does have multiple romances in it. It's got two different timelines. In both timelines, we are in Cuba and Havana, but there are different political things going on in each timeline, which adds a different layer to the romances that are going on. It's definitely a really stunning book, but in terms of romance, it's not my favorite. So it's going in, Aren't We Supposed to Be Falling in Love? All right, I added a couple classics here that are personal favorites of mine. So we have Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Anyone who tries to tell me that Pride and Prejudice isn't the blueprint for romance needs to be checked out, because it is just so good. Darcy professing his love and proposing to Elizabeth while also being super condescending and insulting her and her family. That is just a level of unhinged that current romance books could never do. Okay, Red, White, and Royal Blue. I have not watched the movie. I don't really plan to because it seemed kind of not great, but let me know. I love the book though. It was so cute and just lived in the land of let's have these queer characters be happy, and I was very happy with that. It wasn't that deep, but they definitely got deep. Okay, A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. This is a super cute, cozy fantasy, but a lot of people talk about it as if it's a romance, and it has been marketed as a romance, which I didn't feel like it was all that much of one, but it does have a romance, and it was cute. So we're gonna put this in the Aren't We Supposed to Be Falling in Love category because it's there, but it's not really there. All right, we have 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. There is just an unmatched level of pining in this book that I loved so much. This one definitely goes in the top tier because I just loved these characters. They are both writers. They fall in love over 7 Days in June many years ago, and then they are meeting again many years later through 7 Days in June, and they have both become successful writers in their own right, but they have all this baggage, and you know, they don't know what happened all those years ago, what brought them apart from each other, and they just discover each other in new ways that was just so freaking beautiful. And the pining, guys, the pining over all of those years. On a very similar note of pining, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This book definitely has two characters that need to be protected, particularly Patroclus. I loved his character, but the tenderness of this book, the beauty of this book, the just unmatched level of love that Patroclus has for Achilles was just so admirable. It was almost devotional in some senses. And if you didn't cry at the end of this book, you obviously have no heart. Already on brand, another tragic romance. We have The Stationery Shop by Marshawn Kamali. This book gets me every time. I've read it twice. I've cried both times, sobbed dramatically, and I would love to protect these characters at all costs. But I will say that this isn't necessarily a romance, because that would require a happily ever after, which this one technically doesn't have. All right, Tastes Like Shakar by Nisha Sharma. This is the second Nisha Sharma that I've read. And although, as I said before, I loved Dating Dr. Dil, this book just was such an ick. I was rolling with it at the beginning, and then it veers into a territory that was like so random and weird and just didn't make sense. And I just got the overall ick, which was really unfortunate because I really loved Dating Dr. Dil and I was hoping to have another fun romance to read, but here we are. Beautiful Ones by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. These characters need to be protected as well. Look at how many beautiful books there are at the top of this tier ranker. Ugh, I love it. The Beautiful Ones is a fantastic sort of fantasy romance, I would say. It's kind of a like Jane Austen novel mixed with fantasy novel, and like they're smushed together. And the magic isn't really the important part. It's actually the character relationships and the romance. It's a book with some really wonderful character growth, and the romance is just something that's sort of unexpected in it, in the way that it's originally started and portrayed. Like, you don't think it's gonna go the way it actually goes, which was surprising but fun. The Duke Gets Desperate by Diana Quincy. This is another fun historical romance by Diana Quincy, who's a Palestinian American author. The main character is Arab. And this one was really fun, but it was definitely super on the cringe side, way more than Her Night with the Duke. All right, next we have The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. This one was just such a forgettable romance. It's a bit of a witchy fantasy romance, but I felt like it just wasn't that interesting and exciting and didn't have that much tension to it. So yeah, it just felt overall really forgettable because the characters themselves were just forgettable. So this one's going under stale bread. The Right Move by Liz Tomford, I think. This book was just so interesting. I picked it up for a spicy romance vlog and it really surprised me. It was fun, it was sexy, it was cute. It had some really wonderful smutty scenes, and honestly I just had a really great time with it. But it was very cringe at a lot of points, so that's why it's going under the cringe tier. All right, next I have The Roughest Draft. This one is a really great book to read for the summer, but honestly, thinking back on it now, although I really enjoyed it, it doesn't really stick in my memory all that well, especially in regards to like the characters. Like, I don't remember much about either of them. So yeah, I think I might put this actually under Aren't We Supposed to Fall in Love, because it was still better than these other books. They're writing a book together while on deadline, and they used to be co-writers, but now they're not. And like the whole setup of the situation was actually really fun and interesting. So that definitely kept me on the hook. Okay, The 7-Year Slip, really fun, but again, a little bit forgettable. So I think I'm gonna put it in Aren't We Supposed to Fall in Love. It's a fun romance in the sense that it's got like a time travel aspect to it, and I actually really liked how everything sort of came together by the end. Personally, I didn't find either of the main characters all that interesting, but I did find the romance to be cute, and by the end I was happy I read it. Okay, we're on to the last two books. The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This book was just so bad. It was so icky. The male love interest was kind of toxic and just awful. I really didn't like him, and I remember reading the book and being like, this just needs to end. Another classic, and this is just such a fun one to talk about, and that is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. If you have ever read Wuthering Heights, then you know how odd and weird it is, but also so dramatically intense. Hella toxic, but also romantic in a way. Emily Bronte really wanted to say that she was the first ever woman to write a toxic romance, but yet it works. So this, I think I'm gonna put this in my top tier because I love Heathcliff and Kathy. They are a special pair of people who literally do not know how to get their act together to be together, and are also like super mean to each other throughout the book, but like say all of these dramatic lines and basically pledge their life to this romance that will never work out. And it's just, wow. Incredible. You know, people don't do that anymore. It's just a level of romantic that will never be done again. So that is my ranking for all of these romances that I've read, all of the adult romances that I've read over the course of several years. And that's how I feel about most of these. And now you know which ones you should read this summer. I hope you guys enjoyed my really ridiculous commentary on all of these books. I had a lot of fun, and I hope you did too. Definitely let me know in the comments down below whether you agree with my tier ranking or not, and let me know what your top tier romances are. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, if you haven't already, go check out my Instagram, Goodreads, TikTok, and Bindery community down below. If you haven't heard, my Bindery community is where you can get extra and exclusive content from me for the price of a latte each month. And not only that, you also get to help support my Bindery publishing imprint, Boundless Press. We are publishing our first ever book in summer 2025. It's called Dust Settles North by Dina El-Ganaidi, and I'm currently in the process of actually reading more submissions to acquire yet another book, which is really exciting. We're also on the final round for the cover for Dust Settles North, so that will be coming soon. But if you want the full behind the scenes on this entire process, if you want to be in on the publishing decisions, and if you want to just get like extra and exclusive content from me, which includes like exclusive videos, journal entries, you know, updates and things along the way, and also Zoom hangouts hopefully soon, then you will get all of that for the price of a coffee each month if you join my Bindery community. Okay, that's all I have to say. I'll see you in my next video, and please remember that this story ain't over. Bye.